Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math and gaming. Let's focus on platformers, aka platforming games, aka platform games, whatever you want to call them. When it comes to platformers, I have talked about them in the past, but not at length, right? Like I've talked about individual games that happen to be platformers, and I've talked about platformers in the form of a short. But yeah, so I want to take some time to talk about them for a while longer on a whole. Okay, so when it comes to platformers, the basic idea is right. You're trying to go from point A to point B. You're trying to explore a level or a world, whatever you want to call it. And so as you traverse that environment, you know, you might have obstacles along the way, and sometimes that might be an enemy, right? And so that's the basic idea. Like you're traversing these environments, you're going from point A to point B, and you're dealing with potential obstacles. It's a simple idea that has been displayed in a number of ways, and it's something that's inherently mathematical, which I dig, right? Because you have the idea that you're just dealing with that motion to start, and that's math. You're moving from point A point B. You're considering your position, the position of the different platforms that you'll be exploring, and like the levels and worlds as a whole that you're exploring, and you're considering all that, right? You're dealing with positions and angles, and you're navigating everything. You're running into obstacles. You see where they're at. You see what they might be dishing out at you, and you're making some quick calculations and estimations to get around everything. And jumping and running and climbing are all big parts of a platformer. And when it comes to all that, it's math in motion, and I dig that. And again, it comes in many forms. And when I think about some platformers, you know what I mean? When some platformers come to mind, I think about things like Sonic, Mario, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Ratchet and Clank, more recently Astro's Playroom and Astro Bot. I think about all these games and like so many more because there are countless platformers out there. I think about the ones that they're doing like a whole lot of different things, the ones that are like very action oriented and also fit in that category pretty well. I think about Castlevania, Metroid, Prince of Persia, Ninja Gaiden, things like that, right? Um, and I think about again so many other games, Mega Man, for instance, and um, there's no shortage of it, right? Because you could have platformers that are like pretty straightforward, but you can have ones that are very action oriented, ones that are like puzzle oriented, and there's no shortage of like action adventure games that feature platforming elements. And that's worth noting because right, platformers absolutely had their like heyday, like they had a crazy run, and while you still see them, um, pop up from time to time, especially like Astrobot, for instance, which is more recent, you don't see them as much, right? Um, but even though you don't see them much, like I mentioned before, with like a lot of action adventure games, you see platforming elements, so their legacy is very much still alive. They've been a huge part of video game history, and also while we're talking about platformers, Grease and Neva, both beautiful games, just amazing. Like platformers and just art in motion and just like such a surreal and amazing way. But yeah, so I think about platformers. I think about a lot of different games and how they've had a huge impact in video games over time. And again, it's just this idea that you're traversing these environments, you're overcoming these obstacles, you're doing a lot of running, jumping, climbing in some of these like more traditional titles. Um, and you're just rolling with it. And there's math in the motion, there's math in like the exploration. You're doing countless calculations and really quick time periods, like and that's really cool. Because like say if you're playing a Sonic game, for instance, you're dealing with motion, you're dealing with the speed, you're dealing with your position, and you're rolling around those levels, and it gets crazy, right? Because like you are moving faster and faster, and you're trying to avoid getting stopped while you're trying to get to the finish line, right? And you have different enemies that come at you while you're doing that, and so you're running around, you're going to different platforms, jumping up and about and around. And so it's math and action in a very cool way, and like you see so many um different games just like explode from that. And games like Ratchet and Clank, for instance, they fascinate me because it's like they're absolutely platformers, and those games are absolutely shooters too. and it gets bonkers because you're dealing with that idea of like, hey, I'm dealing with these different environments. I'm trying to move from point A to point B. I'm jumping over this thing or that thing, or I'm gliding to this thing or that thing, or I'm climbing up this, I'm climbing up that. But you're also building up an arsenal and taking out opponents and like jumping around while you do that, and that's all math. So it's like it's all cool. And again, like there's countless platformers out there. They have had a huge legacy in gaming, and like I mentioned, even if you didn't have as many straightforward platformers as we used to over time, even if you don't have that anymore, you cannot ignore the legacy of platforming and gaming because there's so many games that aren't strictly speaking platformers, but they absolutely deal with that. Because like I think about games like Nier Automata, my favorite game of all time, or Devil May Cry, one of my favorite series of all time, and how like there's a bunch of platforming elements in both of those games, even if that's not something that you might normally classify them as, right? Like they're primarily action games, right? But that's just what I'm saying. Like you still have those platforming elements; they're a big part of gaming, and that's not changing anytime soon. And I like me a good old fashioned platformer, and I like more modern takes on it too. Like Astrobot was amazing, and for games that are not strictly platforming but have platforming sections, if they don't suck, I'm here for it. Because some games do it better than others. Just saying. So actually, that's about all I wanted to say with this one, but you could say so much more, and I encourage you to do so. I'll see you in the future.